Hey guys, so I'm trying to see how you can make a skateboarding game fun. Damn, okay.
Skateboarding, either you're really good at it or that. Just like the first episode, skateboarding is one of the things that screams the 90s, and I think you know what the story is of Pro Skater from that video anyways, so let's just jump into it. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater came out 25 years ago, good lord, or 24 if you have an N64 or Dreamcast. So I'm just gonna play every Pro Skater because why not? Starting off with the original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, or skateboarding if you're from PAL regions. So we start the game, and we get an FMV intro that features all the skaters that are featured in this game. But on the N64 version, since it's on a cartridge, the intro is just the computers doing the tricks. Okay then, after that sequence, we get to the main menu, and this music is funky, that's for sure. The main characters we have here are Tony Hawk, Bob Burnquist, Jeff Rowley, Bucky Lasik, Chad Muska, Kareem Campbell, Andrew Reynolds, Groom Glifberg, Jamie Thomas, and Alyssa Steamer. But the secret characters are Officer Dick and Private Carrera. I'll just use Tony Hawk because I'm a basic bitch. We park our board, and let's get to our first level, the warehouse. This is the definition of what Pro Skater is about. Although basic as hell, it is the first level in the entire franchise, so cut it some slack, man. The levels in this game are Warehouse, School 1, Mall, Chicago Skate Park, Downtown Minneapolis, Downhill Jam, which itself got its own game 7 years later, Burnside, San Francisco, and Roswell. Basically the point of this game is that you have to do a high-end pro score, hit 5 things of a certain object, get the skate letters, and of course, the secret tape, in a 2-minute time limit, which is possible in Warehouse, but not in the other levels. Every 3 levels or so are competitions, which means you have to get a high score in a 1-minute time limit, but they are so goddamn difficult. Like, you wanted to get the gold so bad, but then after 30 minutes, after bailing 75,000 times, you just said fuck it, and either get a silver or bronze. Not only that, if you bail a lot, you're definitely gonna hate this game, because it takes 17 centuries for you to get up, and you mostly be pissed off that you have to always restart every time. Roswell gets the worst of it, which I understand it's the last level, but still. I mean, I don't know what else to say about this game, other than that since I started the series with Project 8, yes, I'm that young, playing the original games without any manuals, reverts, or multi-button tricks when grinding/manualing just feels weird. Speaking of grinding, the only way to combo right is to either grind a bunch of times or hold the grab button and flip in the same combo, if you can even land it. But the only way to balance is that since you don't have the balance meter to know if you bail or not, you only have to know from your skater's arms, and that could be confusing to some people, but I think that's kind of better a little bit. Anyways, this is a pretty large game for the time. No wonder why the N64 can't handle that shit. So overall, the first Pro Skater is good, but not worth going back to, unless it's for nostalgia, or you just want to say, eh, when you look at your game collection, if you even have any of the Pro Skater games in your collection anyways. A year later, in 2000, we have Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, one of the highest rated games on Metacritic, but is it one of the best games of all time? Let's take a look. We start the game with the best Neversoft logo of all time and the usual intro, yada yada yada, but it does have Rage Against the Machine though, so nice, I guess. The menu and menu music looks and sounds way better than the last game. We actually have shit to explore instead of just the career mode and free skate. We have Create a Skater and Create a Park, but we'll get to that later. The characters here are the same, but we are introduced with Steve Caballero and Rodney Mullen to the mix. But if you decided to 100% with a Created Skater, you get Spider-Man.
You could tell why I'm excited about that.
Although Neversoft was making Spider-Man 2000 at the time, it still feels funny for Spidey to go on a skateboard, even though they made it canon 12 years later. Alright, let's create a skater. Yep, that definitely looks like me. Now let's get to our first level of the sequel, the hangar. While not as good as the warehouse, it's still a better level because there's more stuff to do. Instead of 5 objectives, they basically doubled in objectives. And let's just get this out of the way. We can finally do combos with the manual, so I don't have to find a random rail to grind or actually get some score every time. But you still don't have a balance meter, but the manual has a balance meter, which is confusing as hell. Instead of collecting tapes to make your stats better, money is now in the picture, by which you can buy stats, boards, tricks, and others. This game, quote-unquote, introduced special tricks. While it was in the first game, it felt like 7 years for the sound to appear. Another thing that was improved was the bail times, where you could just spam buttons for you to get up. The levels we have here are the Hangar, School 2, Marseille, New York City, Venice, Skate Street, Philadelphia, and the Bull Ring. But if you want to hate yourself in 100% the game with every skater, you get both Chopper Drop and Skater Heaven. And you may be saying, how did you get those levels? 2 words, cheat codes. Cheat codes are probably the best thing about this game, where you can basically fly so high, have moon gravity, or double moon gravity if you're crazy enough, and an infinite grind and special meter. Something's missing. Oh yeah, create a park. I can't really make good levels, so I call this Pathetic Park, and it clearly shows that I don't have an imagination. And who could forget the Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX demo? It's terrible, but I'll be back to review the other games that were in the Activision O2 brand. At the end of the day, Thips 2 is good, but not one of the best games of all time. Metacritic, you are a crazy bitch, I tell you that. Another year later, the original Xbox was gonna have Thips 3 as the launch title, but it wasn't finished yet, so Treyarch decided to say, fuck you, here's a remake of the first 2 games. And Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2X was born, and apparently, this piece of shit doesn't want to capture it, so I'ma borrow footage from other YouTubers. Here we have is Thips 2X, exclusively for the original Xbox. It's basically the same game, but with extra levels. But it's also the first game in the series to have online play, and sometimes it's still up to this day, 23 years later. The extra levels are The Club, Construction Zone, Tampa Skate Park, which is featured in another game, the Subway, and City Skylines, which I like to call it fuck off. There's pretty much nothing here much to say, so let's just move on to the actual next-gen Pro Skater title. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, the first real next-gen Pro Skater that became one of the best-selling games of all time, and a lot of people are saying that 3 is the best in the series, so let's see if it's actually the best one in the series. So we start the game, and the singer in the intro sounds like he got something in his throat. There's nothing new in the menu, except for a tutorial narrated by Tony Hawk if you're new to the series. And I don't know why, but the PS2 version specifically has a lower pitch on everything for some reason, like the special trick sound, for instance. The new characters are Banjo from Jackass, Darth Maul, Wolverine, Ollie the Magic Bum from the last game, Kelly Slater, some demon chick, and the Neversoft Eyeball from the intro to this game. Anyways, let's create a skater.
Oh look, another me! Oh, my shirt changed.
I love how I made my pants and socks look like Glep. Alright, let's get to the foundry, which is at best, even though it's the first level. We finally got the revert, where we can string tricks together without losing our combo, unlike the last 2 games. The revert is cool and all, but having the special trick while manualing is way better, and most people don't know about this, but you can actually do molten button tricks in this game. Ha! Take that, Pro Skater 4. Even though they were in the first 2 games, and it's half the appeal of those games anyways, There's videos you can watch after you finish the career with a specific skater, unless if you're a creative skater, then you get a bail montage. The best thing about those videos are the Neversoft related ones, where they made a kickflip contest and musical chairs to win a PS2. This must be a fun workplace to work at when you're trying to pump out a quality game each year, but then you want to have some fun every once in a while with your game making buddies. Okay, I got sidetracked by videos. Let's get into the actual game. The levels are Foundry, Canada, Rio, Suburbia, Airport, Skater Island, Los Angeles, Tokyo, and the cruise ship. But you also get Warehouse, Burnside, and Roswell from the first game if you finish the career multiple times, which I obviously did do, and enter the cheat code instead, because I'm lazy as fuck. The Xbox version exclusively has the oil rig, which is interesting, but not a good Tony Hawk level. Those levels are pretty interesting, because there's actual lore in those missions, instead of do thing, you did it. There's earthquakes, car chases, property damage, burying bullies, and more. The creative park is actually pretty good, but I still can't make a good park, so I call this park. There's another Activision 02 demo for Sean Palmer's Pro Snowboarder, but it's so goddamn flickery and glitchy and jittery that either my modded PS3 or capture card did not like at all. Thanks, game that came out the week before Amped. But that's just the PS2 version. The PS1 version is still here, so we can keep going. Here we have is the lower quality version of Thips 3, where it's just Thips 2 plus more.
And apparently this menu breaks my ability to hear.
This port was made by Shaba Games, who will eventually make Thug 2 Remix and Project 8 for 6th generation systems and PSP. The levels are just basically the same, except for the cruise ship and the extra shit. But some of the levels have different stuff than the 6th generation version. LA already had the earthquake and has an elevator with a big rail that's also an objective. Skater Island doesn't have the pirate ship, and Canada just has a completely different half due to system limitations. Even though they were in the last game, Neversoft invented the big drop feature for realism. Yes, cause grinding New York subway tracks is definitely realistic, but that mechanic kind of fucked me in the ass in this game, but I got used to it and actually hold X. But you know what's kind of fucked up is that even though I 100%ed the career with a created skater, I didn't get the extra level called Downhill, so basically I have to do it all over again, but with Tony. Might as well do it with the rest of the skaters, I guess. Just kidding, I'm not that crazy. Downhill was originally Tony's idea about how these games wanted to be, and this is average as hell, but that's what you get from 1999, kinda. The only things I hate about this version is that this game gives me some weird glitches, mostly from laying down on the wall. And when I collect something, the game just flashbangs you, and I can imagine that when you're playing it at night. But other than that, this is a pretty good team make. And now, let's get to the last game for today. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, or Pro Skater 2003 in Japan, probably because the number 4 is bad luck in Chinese and Japanese, but according to the manual, there's Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX 2 and Kelly Slater's Pro Surfer, but they're also called 2003, so I don't know. I don't know what to say, so let's just get started. This intro might actually be the best one so far, cause it's fucking AC/DC, bro. Rage Against the Machine, you're classic, but I prefer this. Okay, let's get into the game. I didn't even bother to do a time lapse on my create skater, so let's just move on to college. And as you can see, there's no time limit. We get the spine transfer, do multi-button tricks on manuals, and pressing the R2 button for you to not die or lose your combo. The missions here could either be too easy or too difficult. Like, why? Like, you have this mission in the shipyard. You basically spine transfer 6 times, and it's over. Wow. But then you get the infamous Kona Misty Flip and Snake Run. After playing this game, I feel like this has the most slipperiest controls known to man, like the manual going down faster than it should be, and the multi-button tricks just goes wherever it wants to be. And in my opinion, this is probably the worst of the original 4. There's so much nothing here, and just like I said, the missions are in between difficulties. The levels here are College, San Francisco, Alcatraz, even though it is in San Francisco, Kona Skate Park, Shipyard, London, and the Zoo. But the unlocked ones are Carnival and Chicago from Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX 2, or what most people would call it, Chicago from Pro Skater 4. And the secret characters are Eddie from Iron Maiden, Django Fett, Mike Valley, which turns out to be a regular pro skater in the later games, and our private Carrera on here is Daisy, who is, no joke, based off a porn star named Jenna Jameson. Yeah, it says it on there. The levels are okay, but they don't have the same character as the previous 3 games. But I think the best part about this game that's not the intro are the pro goals. Tony has to do a bunch of tricks, Bam has to ride a cart down Alcatraz, and Rodney has to do tricks that he's invented, and so on, all for a video of them skating more. We have another Activision O2 demo for Sean Murray's Pro Wakeboarder, which turns out to be Wakeboarding Unleashed starring Sean Murray, and apparently it doesn't want to load. Thanks, modded PS3. Apparently it's allergic to demos for games that didn't sell well. In conclusion, Thips 4 is okay, but it's the worst of the original 4, but it doesn't make it a bad game by any means. But anyways, let's get into the actual final game for today. Thips 4 on PS1. Damn, for the PS1 in 2002, they gotta do something good in there somehow. I mean, their last game was from 2004, so I can't expect much from it, so let's do it.
Work, you stupid bitch. Oh well.
I don't even need to be saying much. It's just Thips 2, but Thips 4, and Vicarious Visions made it. Yay. And I'ma just state the obvious. Most of the missions are high score and combo objectives, but I just want to say fuck it and use the cheat code instead so I can get one level that I have to 100% the game for, which is Little Big World. And the sewers too, but who cares about that? I'm so tired and pissed off from playing these games for the past few months that I just basically gave up on these games. And life. The sewers is actually a pretty good level where it has all this stuff, an Activision O2 bowl, and a prototype Thips 4 that looks fucking ugly by the way, and Little Big World. I didn't even bother 100%ing this game for, so back to borrowing content. While it sounds like an amazing idea, the level looks pretty shit, and I'd rather play the Toy Story levels from Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure, which is also Thips 4, but for kids! And finally, we're done with this bitch. So I'ma just do what does best in every game. For controls, I would go for Thips 4, even if they're slippery sometimes. For levels, it would go to Thips 3. While the previous games has some very iconic levels, I feel like Thips 3's levels have more character in them. And lastly, for music, it's gotta be between the first or third game. This has gotta be a record for the longest time someone talking about the Pro Skater games and not mention the soundtrack in the first few minutes of the review. Even though I'm pretty sure this review is more of a me bitching on a 25-year-old gaming franchise video. It's licensed music, but it's awesome, and I feel like everybody has talked about how good the music is, so let's just end this.
So, is it worth it to play every single Pro Skater game? Absolutely not. It is a huge waste of time and effort. Although I do like the series, this is way too much. But in the end, it could have been worse. Oh god damn it. Hey guys, I know it's November, but damn it, my summer has been boring as hell and I don't know what to do today. Well, at least it's better than nothing.
Phineas and Ferb, the 2007 hit Disney show where two stepbrothers, that's the name of the show, build stuff that may or may not should be legal, but whatever, it's a cartoon. And their sister named Candace tries to get them caught by their mother, but their pet platypus named Perry is a secret agent who tries to stop his arch nemesis, Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz, from destroying the tri-state area with his innators, but it always keeps failing and hits Phineas and Ferb's sting, and it always vanishes, and the mom never investigate. Not one bit. And that's it, the end. And repeat that for 222 episodes, and you, sir, have a great TV show with an extra 2 seasons coming soon. Yeah. Okay, enough recapping. Let's just get straight into what we're doing. In August of 2011, Disney Channel decided to release Phineas and Ferb's first movie as a DCOM called Phineas and Ferb The Movie Across the Second Dimension, but it did get a theatrical release in Spain for some reason, and somehow it got a wide video game release developed by High Impact Studios, which is very rare for a DCOM that's not High School Musical. The game was released on the Wii, DS, PS3, and PSP, which is impressive for a 2011, because the PSP was at its deathbed at this point. Anyways, I will be playing the PS3 version because I don't want to experience motion controls today. And on the PS3 version specifically, it has 4 episodes in Blu-ray quality. 3 out of 4 are good ones, but I don't know about that last one though. Okay, let's get into the game. It starts with basically a recap of half the movie. Well, the show, you can watch any episode and not feel lost, but I feel like you actually have to watch the movie to understand what this is about. And I did like more than 12 times. It's shocking that this game has a song specifically for this called Gotta Get Gone, and it might be one of the most underrated songs in the entire franchise. And we get to our first level where the entirety of Danville is covered in grape jello, and thankfully they got the original cast to voice and not have a J. Jonah Jameson from Spider-Man 2 2004, but we'll get to that later at some point. And as you can see, this is a shoot 'em up. Yes, there's a difference between a shoot 'em up and a third-person shooter, with baseball launchers that was also featured in Disney Infinity, and other weapons to defeat Jello monsters and stuff. The controls, they're fine, they get the job done, especially for a game about shooting robots voiced by John Family Guy Wiener with baseballs. There's some of these blueprints that you have to build, like the platypult from the actual movie and a receiver for the other Dimensionator, but this game kind of fell flat on its face for knowing why everybody knows Doofenshmirtz or that Perry is a secret agent now. But the first level is basically how this game works, but the real stuff doesn't really start until we get to the next level. But before the next mission, we have to do some boring ass games like a Perry version of Skee Ball and a claw game that takes way too goddamn long than it should be. The next level is the usual sewer level that's also covered in jello, and we have to build an anti-gravity ray, whereas they call it an anti-gravity ray, and we get to upgrade our gadgets and stuff.
I'm so through with gelatin. Forever.
Yeah, me too.
After so much combat, our first boss is the gelatin monster from the first segment of Season 2, Episode 4. Perry shows up with some random turtle named Terry the Turtle. Jesus, that was a lot of alliteration, holy crap. That was in the movie for like a second and a half, where we use Orange Crush, and later, we crush them and eat them. That's definitely someone's fetish. After that, Major Monogram gave us more information about Terry the Turtle, and now we have to get rid of the jello, but eventually, we get to the most boring parts of the game, the jetpack missions. Most of the time, you can't shoot for shit. Most of the time it misses, and it's mostly empty atmosphere. The next level, we actually dive into more of the Orange Crush gun by dissolving the jello without needing a boss. But also, we use the anti-gravity ray more as well, and we shoot more jello monsters and robots to add more variety. And we get to the next cutscene where Phineas drains out all the jello and Ferb saying something about it going counterclockwise. Now, we're done with the jello dimension. The next level is about balloons for some reason, and you have to set up these guns that shoot up water balloons at the robots, but they don't work most of the time, so you're better off using the baseball launchers instead of those water balloons. And that was pretty much the entire first level, which was a horrible start, but Let's see how the other levels in this dimension goes. The next level is finally an actual level for once, and porcupines are the main enemy, but the thing that confuses me is that on the more hard balloons, why didn't they pop as well as the normal balloons? After Ferb trying to kill himself, we get to a son of a bitch! Okay, that's the last time I'll complain about the jetpack missions. The next level's intro is about bees for some reason.
No, not the bees! Not the bees! Ah!
Well, if I were a bee, I'd be angry too.
Okay. Carry on. Our next gadget are these gloves that make you stick to walls, and it's as useful as... Actually, I don't know. We get on these big balloons, and we shoot the fuck out of these porcupines to make sure we stay afloat. Okay, one popped, but we're still afloat. And that's it for the balloon dimension. Now we're in an old cartoon dimension. We start with going on an old boat, trying to carry around cargo with the anti-gravity ray. We eventually get to deliver this picnic basket in a core maze, and I kinda got stuck. But eventually, I delivered it back to that dimension's Phineas, but we have to go back to delivering hay to the cows in the beginning. Finally, we get to build another gadget where it's basically a hacker gun, and we have to beat the so retro enemies. And done. And apparently we're done with this dimension already? Alright then. Thank God we get to my favorite dimension, the gnome dimension. I don't know why this is my favorite, but yeah. Most of this level is us getting the parts to build this giant gnome, but it kind of works than just the 3 to 5 separate levels. But even then, that would make the game way shorter. I forgot to mention this, but every time when there's a slide, I always get out of there maybe once or twice each time, because it's hilarious that they just fly like they're nothing. Oh, I forgot that we even have bosses, but our boss is the Goozum from the beginning of the movie and the game, but apparently sometimes you get eaten by it. I can definitely tell that's someone's fetish, and he just falls off the edge like it's no big deal. Okay, now we're back to the actual second dimension the game and movie is based off of. And we're supposed to turn on these switches so that we can ride on these mine cars, so that we can get further into other dimension Doofenshmirtz's place. And we have the last gadget, and it's probably the most useless one, and that's the Alka agent beacons. All you do is just get a random animal agent, and that's it. And we do it again and again and again. This is probably the most boring one so far. The next level, we pretend to be Doofenshmirtz and tour the robot factory, but how did she not know that there's 2 small Doofenshmirtzes in the same room? Okay, I might have skipped about a couple of minutes into the game because it's boring as hell, but we made a self-destruct button and we have to run away from the factory before it explodes. But it doesn't get interesting until we have to fight Norm with Queen Elizabeth I from Season 1, Episode something. But we get to our second to last platforming location, where we just roam the streets by shooting the robots. Yeah, it's not really that much interesting at all. And for the last platforming levels, you use cranes to find objects for building a drill, Ferb trying to kill himself some more, and using more of the anti-gravity ray. And we finally get to our final boss. But we have to deal with first dimension Doofenshmirtz being in a super monkey ball. And it's simple enough. You just wait for him to stop and then jump to make him feel weaker while you're just going in circles. But we do defeat him at some point, and apparently this doof, literally, pushed the button that turns himself into a huge robot of his second dimension counterpart, and that's our actual final boss. It's too easy. I get it, it's for children, but at least put something to make it more difficult. All you do is just ignore the lasers and shoot something into that door in the middle, and that's it, the end. Our last cutscene is Other Dimension Phineas making a vlog about how they're spending their first summer vacation after Doofenshmirtz took over, and they made a reference to the first episode.
Oh, hey Ferb, you're back with the plans. And you got the blowtorch. But what's the peanut butter for? Well, that's my cue. We're off to build the coolest roller coaster ever. Hey Ferb, you got enough rivets up there?
And then the credits roll. That was such an average game, but I couldn't say that I kinda liked it. And that's the end of the main console version. and I almost finished it in a single sitting, but I kind of fell asleep while playing it, and it clearly shows. But let's talk about the different versions of this game, more specifically, the DS version, which I don't have, but Nathan does, right?
What?
Ha 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 ha! Anyways, the DS version kinda sucks. Instead of being a shoot 'em up, it just feels like an out-of-the-mill platformer. But there's some different dimensions than the console version, like dimensions ranging from ancient Egypt, music, to even Toy World or some sort. And since it's on DS, it can't handle 6 long dimensions, but it can handle 5 7-level dimensions. Like, that's any better. And instead of co-op, you can choose either Phineas, Ferb, or Perry in a single-player event without your friends, cause you know how gamers are. But thank God they don't have the jetpack missions. Fuck those. While the PSP version is just what you expect from the PSP, it's basically the console version on a handheld, and for 2011, this is actually pretty impressive, considering it's almost at death's door with LEGO Harry Potter Years 5 through 7, another licensed kids game, being its last game in North America. But the physical edition of Across the Second Dimension is European only, for some reason. But thank God the PSP is region free, at least game-wise. And I'm done. Huh. Weird. Anyways.
So to conclude my review, Phineas and Ferb Across the Second Dimension is pretty good. Not like best game of all time worthy, but it's pretty good for an early 2010s kids game. But in the end, they all can't be winners.
Is my car squatched?
Hey guys, man I love Bluey. I would love to relax and drink my favorite drink out of my Bluey cup while holding a bingo plush, playing Bluey the video game, and enjoying some Bluey cereal. Yes, I'm crazy.
This episode of It'sCruzTube is called Bluey the Video Game. Why am I doing this in my life? You're paying me for this, right?
Bluey, a 2018 toddler show created by Joe Brum and produced by Ludo Studios, is about this rectangular dog who mostly plays role games with her sister Bingo, who is my favorite character by the way, and her dad named Bandit, who is an archaeologist. And the mom exists too, I guess. It's pretty much a slice-of-life show, and the Sleepy Time episode alone is somehow one of the highest rated TV episodes on IMDb. Alright, let's get into what we're doing today. 2 years ago, the official Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, and Bluey account released an announcement that a Bluey video game was in the works, and at the time, I wasn't a Bluey fan. But I looked at this and I thought, this looks decent, until I saw a little logo that says OG on it, and that OG is Outright Games. Basically the LJN of the 21st century, so I kinda didn't have any high hopes for it. 2 years later, I bought it anyways, cause it was Bluey related. I need help, and I have the PS5 version because if a super realistic gaming console needs anything else in the world, it's a game about an Australian dog, so let's pop it in. Made with Unity.
Ha, good one.
We start with the show's intro, but with game stuff on it, and it's one of the best parts about the game already. The character selection is just what you expected. You can play as Bandit, Bluey, Bingo, and Chili. And that's pretty much it. I'll just stick with Bingo, cause, again, favorite character. The story starts off with Bluey and Bingo waking up their parents for vacation, or I'm sorry, holiday. But before we go on holiday, we have to clean up all the animal plushies, and literally the first frame of the actual game is just Bingo staring at my soul. While the backgrounds are in 3D, I like how they use the same 2D models from the show instead of trying to make a separate 3D model of the characters, so it's kinda like the South Park games a little bit. And I like how they walk slowly down the stairs. I mean, safety first and all, but they could just slide down the rails of the stairs. Or hell, they could just jump all the way down, and you don't even need stairs, because that's totally safe. But you definitely need a doctor after doing that. After we picked up all the toys, we see an unblown balloon, and we decided to play Keepy Uppy, which is based off the episode of the same name, where we try to keep the balloon from hitting the ground or grass. But apparently, it's already on the grass, and it hasn't popped. Yeah, that totally makes sense. It's just mostly hitting the square button and slightly moving a different direction. And then randomly Bandit Mario'd the balloon and it was going into a baby's room? I mean, it's clearly what it is, but I think it's mostly a storage unit or something. Or maybe it's the miscarriage reference, I don't really know. We got the balloon, and eventually we found a map that was an old map that Bandit had since the 80s. And of course, we have to find the rest of the map, so that we can find some buried treasure that's been buried for 3 decades. And now, let's go to the park. But before that, I know this is nitpicky, but why are the cutscenes in a movie aspect ratio while the rest of the game isn't 16:9? So we arrived at the park, and we meet Muffin, who is also one of my favorites, and Uncle Stripe.
My name is Boo Boo Bop Boo.
Okay, we meet Boop Boop Bop Boop and Uncle Stripe, and we are basically playing the Four is Lava, and we have to get hats in order to play. And as we're getting the hats, you can definitely hear that the voice actor for Bluey is getting older.
I think I see them.
I know it happens, but that's just life, I guess. So we played the ground is lava, and I'm done. This game is hard. After that game, Stripe gave us the second piece of the map, and we're 2/3 of the way.
Dad, I'm busting. Let's go.
In a minute, Muffy.
What? I'm busting.
Muffin, please don't say that ever again. There's children playing this. The next episode, yes, they're labeled as episodes, is called Chattermax, and we had to go into the backyard and turn off all the sprinklers just to see Uncle Rad and find the last piece of the map. But Rad gave us another one of those annoying pieces of shit that the episode is called, and we have to feed Chattermax with various items from strawberries to rubber duckies. While feeding Chattermax, we introduced a new mechanic to this game, and it's planting flowers. Wow, so interesting. And once we gave him all the things to eat, he goes batshit crazy, and we have to catch it in order to get the last piece of the map. We suddenly found another Chattermax, which is basically the same thing, but it's purple instead of red. But we did actually find the real one, and we put him in jail, and we completed the map. But we still have the quest left. The next episode is called Treasure, but the intro to this episode is based off the very first episode, and that is the Magic Xylophone, where whenever someone has a xylophone and uses it, they freeze. And it basically segued into another minigame, and considering it's mostly meant to be a local multiplayer type of game, the computers just don't feel like they want to be there for some reason. We eventually get to the creek to find the lost treasure, and we have to pick up garbage. I thought this game was about Bluey, not doing community service. Also, they say rubbish instead of garbage. It's not like they're Australian or anything. After all that trouble, the treasure was this He-Man type of toy called Power Bloke, and Bandit tells us a backstory of why it was buried. It's actually interesting that this game actually has some ideas put into it. Like, they thought of this toy just for this game, and it wasn't mentioned in the show afterward. Back at the house, Bluey was bummed out that they spent all their vacation just looking for the treasure, and there was no gold. And then Bandit shows us a photo album about the whole adventure, and Bluey realized it's not about the gold, but it's mostly about the journey. And then the story ends. But we're not done yet. We're at the beach, and there's still more things to do to really complete this game, and also to platinum this game. Yes, I decided to platinum this game because why not? The collectibles are consisting of 3 hockey sticks, 3 pavlovas, which is a New Zealand cake thing, 3 newspapers, and 3 leaf bug things from the weekend episode. But you also have to collect all this crap to finish the sticker book, like planting all the flowers, collecting all the toys, and sports balls. And most of the collecting is just mostly consisting of
Yay!
Wow, you got a city sport. That's awesome.
The funniest part about this whole journey is that when I was filling up the watering can in the creek, the water goes under the water fountain instead of going up like it's supposed to. After collecting all those things, you get a picture of the Healer family hanging out at the beach. And while I was recording this video, before it was completed, I thought the water was milk, considering it was a lot of white instead of blue. And 2 hours later, I got the last trophy, and that's for sliding on a slide 3 times in a row. And somehow, this is the hardest part of the game. I basically spent like 10 minutes trying to get it, but Sony doesn't want to give me that trophy. But somehow I got it. And somehow I also 100%ed a game in 4 hours. I could really say that I'm done with this game. But what can plate about it is that this game on the PlayStation Store, it's $40. I bought my copy for 20, and that's basically what it should have been, because there's not that much content and replay value, other than the stories and the collectibles. I guess you can replay the mini-games with your family or something, but that gets really old fast. So, in conclusion,
For a game made by Outright Games, Bluey the Video Game is actually pretty decent. You can definitely tell that they put some love, care, and effort into this game instead of being a run-of-the-mill cash grab, even if licensed kids games on consoles don't really exist anymore, unlike the 2000s and 2010s. But, in the end... Hey, are you interested in these Bluey fruit snacks? Hey guys, so I was originally going to watch The Adventures of Ari, my robot friend, for the 8th time today, but someone named Darth Vader who came from the planet Vulcan say he'll melt my brain if I don't review these games. Let's hope that this will be my density.
Back to the Future. Who hasn't seen this movie? Well, I didn't really grow up with it. I watched it recently because I was bored one day and had nothing to watch, and I was also getting into more nerd franchises like Star Wars. Obviously, I got hooked with the franchise and decided to watch the entire trilogy. I even got to see the first movie in theaters. And I know it sounds cliche as hell, but this is one of my favorite movies, if not one of the best movies ever made. Okay, praising time's over. Back to the Future was a huge success, grossing about $200 million worldwide, with a second film in '89, and then the third one the next year. So with the first movie being a huge success, there had to be a plethora of merchandise, and video games are no exception. In 1989, when the second movie was about to come out, the granddad of all bad games, which is LJN, decided to publish a Back to the Future game, 4 years after the movie came out. Nice one, guys. And then in 1990, with not just a standard sequel game based off the second movie, but also adding the third one for extra credit, I guess. While I'm not the first one to make a review of these games, because there's way too many of them, but I'm gonna do it kinda slightly different than the average quote-unquote mad gamer, so let's do it.
Can't believe that I'm actually doing something Nintendo for once.
Okay, so I put the cartridge in, but where's the picture?
Oh, it's because I didn't do the traditional cartridge fix.
Well, shit. So it turns out that the actual cartridge is fucked. I tried testing the Retron with other games / other systems. Hell, even the next game I'm gonna review for this episode works. And that basically proves a point that this cartridge is fried. So I have to play devil's advocate to some people, which is emulation. This game was made by Beam Software, who also made 720 Degrees on the NES, Nightshade, The Claws of, that, a Viva Pinata sequel, which is also the only game in the franchise not made by Rareware, and a Scenic game for the PS3. And that's all I know about the company. Once we get to the main menu, it's just as simplistic as it is, but that music. It's like they took Power of Love, but they didn't have the time to put in all the songs, so they said, fuck it. Even if I slow it down, it literally sounds like Power of Love. Here, take a listen. Also, it loops. That's totally not gonna get annoying fast. After pressing start, we get a map with the locations that are notable from the movie, which is Lou's Cafe, the Hill Valley School, the Enchantment Under the Sea Dance, and then the Clock Tower. We get to the first level, and we play as Marty, or what I think is Marty, because it looks more like Eric Stoltz's version of Marty because of the black jacket. You're supposed to run away from bullies, which I'm assuming is Biff, hula hoop girls, bees, and people carrying glass while collecting clocks to make sure that you don't fade away from existence. And also, there's a time limit. But since it's on the NES, it goes faster than an actual second. Also, the walls can kill you, for whatever reason.
Huh, that's a weird game mechanic. Also, when in the fuck did I get this jacket?
You can also use bowling balls to throw at people, but I just don't use it, because it's as useful as its jumping mechanic, which is also useless. But the thing that pisses me off is that when you fall, the timer doesn't stop, just to fuck with you. If those clocks would be another way for you to get more time, I can understand that. But no, the clocks are there for decoration. Also, there are so many fucking bees! They appear every half a second! Jesus, did someone in Hill Valley accidentally broke their beehive? Okay, somehow I survived all those bees and Biff clones. Now on to Lou's Cafe. The Lou's Cafe minigame is where you have to throw milkshakes at bullies and you need a specific amount of points to move on. So, what is it then? 20? 25? No, 50. Which sounds easy enough, but here's the thing. It's way too fucking difficult. The highest I could go is about 16. What's messed up is that you lose a life if you didn't get 50 points, but thank god it just brings you back to the last level, unlike most NES games that take you to the first level, which I still think is bullshit.
I really tried, but those bullies, you have to be so precise at a certain angle when you're throwing those milkshakes. So, I'm gonna do something that people also would find horrific, and that is good old cheating.
After pressing random numbers from a book that I found on the internet, I finally got access to cheats. Even with cheats on, it's still hard. I could only get at least a 21, and within one non-consecutive hour, I finally got 50 points, and I finally moved on. After all that hassle, the next level is literally nothing special to this, other than that it's slightly harder, the background color is yellow, and there's more bees. Yay, my favorite. I forgot to tell you this earlier, but you do get a skateboard for extra speed, but sometimes it gets a little too fast, and you would crash into everything. Alright, so Yellow Hill Valley wasn't really that hard, but we do go to our next minigame, which is at the Hill Valley High School, where you have to avoid hearts from Marty's mom, Lorraine, which in the movie, Marty's supposed to be hooking Lorraine up with George instead, but Marty keeps doing cool shit, and I'm sorry.
And you thought that I think that the cafe was difficult? Ooh, let me tell you about this fucking minigame.
I cannot fathom the hour and a half I've wasted on this fucking minigame. The highest I've gotten was 35. This is probably the longest and most angriest I've ever been at a game, and this fucking game is 37 years old. But I actually found an objective on how to get 50 points, and that is to follow the heart trail. I mean, it took a while, but I finally got to 50. This is basically what I wanted to do when I finally got the 50 points, and if that cartridge worked.
Fucking finally!
But really, I was like,
fucking finally!
okay, after having a meltdown over a goddamn 37-year-old licensed NES game, the next color for the walking game is poop brown. Yay! The bees are still annoying, and randomly there's bowling pins in the street. I can understand it because there's bowling balls in the street also, but why are there bowling equipment in the middle of the street anyways? Okay, this is boring. Now to the next minigame, which is at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, where in the movie, it's awesome as fuck, but in the game, it's basically the Power of Love situation where it sounds like the real song when you slow it down. Even though they have the perfect tempo to make it 8-bit, but nope, you gotta hype up those kids, man, and make it fast. For this minigame, I wasn't really angry, I was more confused than angry. I was expecting more like the other minigames, until I saw a walkthrough on what the fuck you're supposed to do. So the green sharps, you have to put the guitar all the way up, the quarter notes you have to put in the middle, and the flat note is at the very bottom. This is basically NES Guitar Hero, but except you don't press any real buttons, all you use is the D-pad. and you basically have to do it all in one go with this heartometer right there to make Marty's parents fall in love, even though George punching Biff and Earth Angel was the thing that made Lorraine fall in love with him. If you fuck it up more than twice, it's straight to the bottom. I mean, it took me 45 minutes, but that mostly because I was afraid that I might mess shit up, but thankfully I made it. I did more cool shit because, of course, it's trying to be good, and made an alternate 1985. But I just realized, why is the picture that fixes the timeline Marty with Doc in 1985 and 1955, and not Marty's siblings like in the movie? Also, George looks like he has a mustache. The last Hill Valley walking level looks more like the first one, but a little darker. And it should have been more like of a nighttime color. And it's the hardest out of all of them, with like 17 bees a second and a lot of hula hoop girls. But the clocks are basically useless because you've saved the timeline. So that means you can die as many as you want. But just like the last one, this is really boring. So let's move on to the last minigame where you have to go back to the future. Trademark. After multiple hours of pain, anger, and patience, the DeLorean finally appears in the game, and you have to avoid lightning strikes, which doesn't make sense because the whole point for Marty to go back to 1985 without plutonium is to get the 1.21 gigawatts of electricity, which is a bolt of lightning. They literally say it in the movie.
Marty, I'm sorry, but the only power source capable of generating 1.21 gigawatts of electricity is a bolt of lightning. What did you say? A bolt of lightning!
Instead of pressing A to go, you press up on the D-pad, and those lightning bolts are distracting the shit out of me. And once I get to the electricity beam thing, it wasn't enough for me to go 88 miles per hour, and made me stay in 1955. What's fucked is that instead of, I don't know, sending me back to the last level, it sends you back to the title screen. Thank God for save stating, because if this was on a real NES, I would have killed myself. It took 6 tries, and finally, that was the end for Back to the Future for the NES. Fuck this song.
So that's Back to the Future for the NES. This is probably one of the most painful games I had to experience in my life, and I can understand why Nintendo Power says it having a distinct LJN style and having an interesting timer. I mean, it's pretty common for an NES game to be hard as balls because that's basically its own genre at this point. I mean, it could be worse. There are some relations to the movie, like the DeLorean, the kind of music, and also the minigame locations, but other than that, this game is bad, but in a boring way, because people review it too much. Don't look at me! Now, I would end it here, but that's just too convenient, you know? This is a trilogy after all, so I have to review its sequel game that also has the third one in there too. I just wanna fucking end this video already.
Alright, new game, same developers. I mean, I do prefer Back in Time more than Power of Love, but damn, that's actually a really decent rendition for once. I mean, it's a little faster than usual, but the beat is still there, you know? The story is ripped right from the movie, where future Biff finds a sports almanac and gives it to 1955 Biff so that he'll be filthy rich. And you have to stop him from making a dystopia in 1985. Once we get to the actual game, it's a platformer, which is basically a breath of fresh air.
So let's hope that this will be a decent game for once. Also, I found this cool hat from like a decade ago, for some reason.
We start the game in the dystopian 1985, and I immediately went to the Biff bar, and what happened here? There's burgers, pizza, and beer, I'm assuming, and you have to collect them in 25 seconds, for real this time. And if you get all of them, you get a full pizza that gives you 5 extra lives. This game is a where the fuck am I going type of game, where you just wander around the world and find something to do. So I have to use a walkthrough to understand it. Yes, I'm a pussy. Considering this is dystopian, there's a bunch of weird-ass enemies, like mini trash cans with legs, birds with this annoying-ass noise that is painful as shit, snails, and turtle shells that looks way too much like Koopaling shells, but for some reason they have keys in them, sometimes, to open up doors with minigames where you have to collect clocks in a short amount of time. Is this giving deja vu, or am I just dreaming? Some of these minigames are ranging from really easy to straight up impossible, and after all of that, you do get an item, and you have to collect 30 of them for part 2, ranging from a root beer float to a Walkman. The most confusing part is that you have to go to these elevators to go to a different part of the map, and you don't know if you've already been to this part yet. You do get hoverboards in 1985 for some reason, and they are faster than the last game's skateboard, but randomly they explode if you ride it too much. Yeah, there's nothing for me to comment on. All you do is just get keys, complete difficult ass minigames, get items, and unscramble the words to understand what you got. When you lose all your lives, you do continue, but you lose all your keys and items. When you press select, you do get the amount of keys and items you have, but also 3 other things, but I mostly use the remote button, which brings the DeLorean. Once you get into the DeLorean, you get to choose either 1985, 1955, or 2015. Because that's how you really start the second movie. And yes, I have been using Game Genie again. Thank you for asking.
Jesus, this game is boring to talk about, because there's basically nothing to do other than the main objective, but even then, it's so tedious. You literally have to look through everything to find something to do. But I feel like I should give up at this point, but the question is, how am I gonna get to part 3? Well, I've heard of a code that if you press select and B in the title screen, you get an unscrambler, and if you scramble flux capacitor as the power, you get access to part 3. So let's just get into that, because patience is key on this show.
The story starts with Marty burning the sports almanac, and that was the ending, until Doc's letter came from the Old West in 1875. Wait, 1875? Isn't the whole point of part 3 supposed to be set in 1885? In the last part, if you start the game or die, you get the DeLorean, but in this part, you arrive on a bird. I know this is a game, but how can a bird handle a full-on human? So part 3 is just part 2 with a different scenery, and also the items have been cut down from 30 to just 10, and that's way more doable. But other than that, it's still too difficult, with like 16 enemies at once, with scorpions, snakes, skunks, cowboys, and totally not racial stereotype Native Americans. Minigames are even more difficult in part 3. It's at that level of hard to the point where you actually need to be a scientist to understand this shit, all to get something like a bandana. Like, the last 3 minigames in total, it took me, no joke, 3.5 hours. Okay, the second one wasn't really that hard, but still! Also, I'm sorry to ruin your day, but I'm not playing this on the Retron. I'm still using the emulator. But thank fuck for the rewind feature. Okay, after 10 hours of actual hell, and another 4 or 5 hours from the last game, I'm finally fucking done. You get a cutscene, which is basically the ending to the third movie, where you hook the DeLorean to the train, and you go back to the future. This is basically the best part of the game. After it hits 88 miles per hour, that's the end for Back to the Future 2 and 3. Actually, fuck this game for reals.
So that's the NES Back to the Future trilogy. While the first one, there are some parts that are enjoyable, but it's mostly a painful shit show. While the second one, this is one of the worst games I've ever played because of those confusing maze-like designs and jack shit to talk about that, to be honest, I kinda wish that this game never existed, but whatever. This is basically one of the most excruciating things I've ever done in my life, and I hope both of these games fucking die. But thank God we have better Back to the Future games, like the Telltale Games series and the LEGO Dimensions level that will eventually get its own game, right? And I'll probably watch some movies any day, except the third one. I don't really like the third one. But, in the end, I kinda wanna go time traveling now, but I don't know how to drive.